you said.
Okay.
Okay. So, Bryson, what you mentioned is you talked about the fact that you met somebody,
Yeah.
you had conversations with them around that transition is possible, and the person walked you through
Mm.
what are the steps that are involved in transition, whom to contact, how to do it. And they kind of walked you through the whole thing, and you were so inspired by that. And then also your experience when we talked about the sexual relationship that you had, and it kind of motivated you to take a look at yourself more clearly, saying that, wow, this is who I am. And with all this information that you had and your own mind, you felt like I'm different. You made a decision that you want to have a medical intervention in your life, like medical surgery, medical transition.
When I wanted to have a medical surgery, there's a couple conversations before that I had to have before I
Hmm.
could even decide that. I had to first, because I wanted my mom to know that I wanted to
Hmm.
transition, and I was trying to be open about it.
Hmm.
So when I knew this is what I wanted to do, before I made my appointment, I texted her and I said, we need to go to therapy and talk. And she's like, no, we don't. What do we need to talk about? Just tell me. And I said, I think I want to be a guy. And she's like, as long as it makes you happy. And she was
Wow.
just like, oh, arms and opens and everything. That was that. She never looked back. That was the day she never looked back.
Hmm.
She knew that it opened a light somewhere because, after that, it was like, I didn't tell my family that I transitioned. She was the one who did it. And
Hmm.
that's another thing that's kind of hard because parents don't understand. You're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be our decision, but we didn't know because we lived in a town that was very conservative and didn't have any resources. We didn't know what to do. It was just me and her. So we just did it together, like the first 5 years together, just me and her, doctor's appointments and seeing what it's like and just starting the journey of transitioning, getting my first shot and just seeing the changes. But when it comes down to answering the medical side of it, I didn't start my medical journey for like I took shots for 5 years before I decided to do a surgery
Right.
because
Absolutely.
and that's another thing that you got to be careful with is when I did my hormones at the LGBT center, they gave me because I was a little heavier back then, they didn't give me the right dosage. So
Hmm.
I didn't transition as much as I look like it, but a lot of the guys that I've seen transition, their voice has been deeper, or they grew facial hair sooner than I did. It took me 3 years to even get facial hair to come in my face because I didn't 5 years because until I went to Kaiser and got bumped up to like point 0.7 and then worked my way down a little bit, things didn't start really developing or changing like they should have the first year.
Hmm.
The voice did, and that was about it. The voice and a few other things. But
Right.
when it really came down to it is when I got on the right dose, it just came in. It was like, oh my God.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask you a question here before we jump
Okay.
into I know we jumped a little bit more into this.
Yeah.
But my question is, and in the medical transition, there are a lot of steps, right? Going to the therapist and to gender affirming care, and you
Mm.
also need the care before you get to the surgery part of it. I'm glad you brought it up as where you first had the conversation with your mom.
Yeah.
That is a pivotal moment, and your mom was probably expecting that. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I mean, maybe she did.
The reason why she was expecting that and she probably knew that I was gonna turn out that way is because back when I transitioned, she saw so much happiness
Mm.
and a light that just clicked. And like, because before that, I attempted suicide and then I
Right.
started transitioning, and she's like, this is what saved his life. Those
Mm.
were exact words. If he didn't transition, he wouldn't be alive today. This is what saved his life. And that's what she told a provider that intaked us for my first surgery.
No, and so it's so heartwarming to really see how parents can really, accept and
Yeah.
be supportive. I know you mentioned she's even supportive today to the point of through all the journey that you had in medical intervention. We will talk a little bit about it, but I would just want to ask that. Um, so you started your therapy. You went to the started taking some dosage of HRT, and it kind of helped you, right? It helped you to a point where.
The one thing that I didn't like is that they didn't back then at the LGBT center, they just called you by your original name. They didn't really use your other it took them a while to start using the original name because it was
Oh my.
whatever was on my medical ID. But
Ooh,
that was a long time ago because I don't know if they were really familiar with a lot of things because they've changed a lot since I've been
medical
there.
world. Tell me about it.
That
I
was like 2012.
I hope they have corrected now. If they've not,
Yeah,
they better get their act together.
I know,
Uh,
right?
I know, but
I
I'm
agree.
glad you mentioned that because part of some of our conversations will be on that as well, right? When how did the doctors treat you? And usually the medical world always keeps saying that, hey, we are only addressing your anatomy. You can't address the anatomy alone. You have to address the whole person,
Yeah,
right? There's so much going on in our head. There's so much going on in our heart. There's so much going on in our every breath that we take and our soul, our body, and you can't just treat an anatomy and just leave it, hanging in there. Um, I do educate a lot, especially in this particular side with the medical community. But here's the thing. So you decided to go through that and you started taking hormones. Um, so how was your journey at the time? Did it really help in your journey
it
towards
made me feel free.
Bryson?
It made me feel as free as I could be at the moment. But it was something that I felt like, okay, I was so happy to do. For
Mm,
the first time in my life, it was something I needed to do for myself that I
mm.
felt really happy about.
Oh my God, I'm so. Um, I was just thinking about you know, the time that you felt that your gender dysphoria is slowly going away, um, and you also had to make a decision whether
When
how do I
when
sustain this?
when I was when I still was who I was underneath and
Mm,
I looked like more of a guy the more my hormones kicked in and worked a long time for that.
mm,
But I tried to play the role as much as I could because I didn't know when I was going to start surgeries. I didn't know how I was going to do it or raise the money or anything. So I wore bigger shirts, but I wore like more like darker colors, like black and blue, so they wouldn't tell that it would be like anything up here. And I would not wear a bra or anything. I would just let it free. And I just because I was so heavy that I knew that I could just get away with it, kind of thing.
mm,
So I tried to like slide in and get away with it as much as I could. And I just tried to fit in. Like I tried to dye whatever little dot came on my face to try to fit in, but
mm,
it didn't work out too well because I'm
mm,
so pale that it doesn't work with my skin to dye the hair colors. So it wouldn't come in, and it was just I wanted to fit in so bad, but it just oh, mm-mm. There's some things that couldn't change. So I
mm.
had to live with what I had to live with. I was still happy to be me. That's the end result. Like I was so happy, and I started meeting other people and started going to events and just living who I was at the moment for the first time in my life.
I love it when you said that. I was happy to be me. Isn't that so true for a lot of our?
My quote is, I am who I am. There's no label that's going to define me. I'm just me.
Exactly, aiming to that. One of the things which I wanted to also ask is, so let's
Mm,
get to the part where we, talk about the medical transition where
okay. Okay.
decided to do that.
Okay.
Just give me a second. There's some water on my face. I was just trying to touch it up. But so you moved on, and you're happy to be you, and you wanted this happiness to live and long for a very long time,
Yep.
wanted to sustain this, and at the
Mm.
time you had made a decision to yourself that you're going to do it all the way, because one of the things that in your journey you wanted to be in your authentic gender, which included every bit of every extent that you want to go into.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you way back then, and the first time I met you, I didn't even know that you were, um, you had what I would say your birth gender was female, because you were so good looking, and you look like that's what you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
Supposed to be who I am. Yeah. But it's easier for us.
way back, we know each other for a while, but
Yeah.
the question that I had is, I know we at that point you're probably taking HRT and
Yeah.
going through therapy. So when did it occur to you that you want to really go into the surgical like surgery, and start this? What age did you decide to do that? And what prompted you to really make that decision that you wanted to have a surgery?
Well, when I first started HRT and everything, I already knew I was going to do the surgeries. I wanted them, but I didn't know how. But what really got me was the more I started transitioning, the more I didn't feel like I don't know how to describe it because I don't know the words very well. But people say that they're dysphoric about their body and the way they are every day when they just look at it. For me, that wasn't the case though. I
Mm,
didn't care. I didn't want them, but I didn't care I had them. It was just I didn't want to be who I was. I was more euphoric. I only got dysphoria around my surgeries, like only when I was having my surgery, and then afterwards it would change the feeling.
mm,
So back in 2016, I was at bowling alley in Simi, and there's this lady who's there, and she knew I was transitioning because I had a friend who had special needs, and I was hanging out with them, and they turned around. She turned to me and she goes, "I have this friend who transitioned too, and he might be able to help you through the medical side of it because he understands all that. And he knows that you could probably do something. So let me talk to him." So she goes to work and she talks to him, and he comes back and she comes back and she tells me, "Well, he gave me his phone number to give to you and tells me you can call him if you want, and tells me that here's the information for Kaiser. Why don't you try to sign up for them? If you are who you are, they'll help you. They'll be able to get you in, whatever and it would probably help him a lot." So I signed up for Kaiser. That was behold, worked. Didn't call the guy for a year
mm,
because I was too nervous because I was just like, oh my God, I was just trying to figure out everything. And then I went and had top surgery in 2017, but the person was CJ.
oh my God, I
Me and
thought
C,
about
that's how me and CJ became friends.
it. Mm,
Is I He helped me and I called him. And the second I called him on the phone for the first time ever talking to him, he's like, "Come on over to my house. Come hang out with us." And I went
mm,
right over there and we've been best friends for 6 years now. And he's
wow.
been there through the whole journey. He's helped me through everything. There are countless numbers of things that I could tell you that he helped me with during my process that failed, that he had to fix.
Mm,
That there's just it's amazing to have somebody who went through the surgery already
mm,
and didn't have any complications really to somebody like me with all. But
mm.
we'll get into that when the time's right.
Yeah, so you met CJ and Lisa.
Yeah,
I know them. They're a wonderful couple. They've been such a model, and a role model, especially in a lot of ways for me as well. Especially Lisa and CJ. I've known them for a while, even CJ before transitioning.
yeah.
But it's such an amazing connection that you
Mhm.
found, and the community that you found, which is great. One of the things that I also want to, get from your conversation is, there were times when you probably used binders right before, or you never used binders at
I
all.
didn't know what they were. I never knew what any of this stuff was back
Wow.
then. When I transitioned, I told you I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know about binders. I didn't know about Packers. I didn't know any of this existed the first few years of my transition. And then by the time I was already doing surgeries like top surgery, I was like, what's the point of even trying to use like a Packer for the lower or any of this? Because what's the point?
Oh my God.
I didn't understand any of it.
Mm,
That's how we did it. Me and my mom were just like, okay, well, this is the next step. So I didn't even know there was two bottom surgeries, two different type of bottom surgeries when I first started and went through like half of my transition
mm,
because I wasn't educated on all this because it wasn't well known at the time to be possible.
right.
Now
The
it is.
so you mentioned what age did you really decide to go for the first, like what age was it probably like?
I was dead set when I was 22 that I wanted medical, but I was for sure in 2016. So I was about 28,
Mm, okay. So you probably were more
a little bit older.
little bit not actually older, but you're probably more wiser in terms of your decision that
Just
you
good.
really wanted to, and that's a journey that you did, right?
Yeah, that's when I did. 'Cause the first four years, I was just on hormones and I didn't understand what half of it was. And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, I do want it, but like, how am I going to go about it? Like, what are the surgeries? What's this? I knew nothing, nothing. They didn't really have much information about our surgeries and stuff like that.
Yeah. So when you signed up for the surgery, where did you sign up, and when was the first time you went to the doctor's office?
So in Kaiser, it does it differently,
Mm,
but we do it differently through Kaiser. So I switched from the LGBT center to Kaiser. And
mm,
then Kaiser, what they do is they set you up with a gender therapist.
mm,
And since I was already on hormones, he already approved me to go through with it.
mm,
And then they set you up with a GP, general doctor, who can send you off. And if the gender therapist approves that you're okay to go through and you're approved of everything, then they set you up with the process of finding you a doctor. Like you go to endocrinologist and then they send you off to like, okay, now you want the surgery. So they have to write off on theirs that they approve and go through all this. And then they'll send you somewhere within Kaiser, not the same building, not the same unit. It's a location completely of where to go for the surgeries, but you talk to the doctors down there
mm,
first.
mm,
And when I was going through for my even my top surgery, they had a when they were starting my surgeries, they had a doctor come through like let me rewind for a second. For top surgery, I went down to Woodland Hills and got top surgery with a wonderful doctor down there at the plastic surgery department who was fantastic.
mm.
Okay, it was great, but I had complications with that one. That was where my complications started,
Which
which I
doctor
was
was this in San Francisco?
no, this one was the Woodland Hills one. This is top surgery in Woodland Hills
Hmm.
at the Kaiser down there
Okay.
off Burbank. Yeah,
So your insurance was with Kaiser.
yeah, completely. And it still is through this whole thing. And I'm thankful for that because it cost me nothing.
Hmm.
Except for my parents had to pay a lot to go to San Francisco for the bottom surgery, but that was
Hmm. Hmm.
this Kaiser only pays for half of that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So when you started with Kaiser, I mean,
uh
the how were the staff treating you? They were okay with the way
the
with
reason they were okay with me is because I switched my name a year after I started transitioning.
mm,
I didn't keep it the way it was. Like most people don't, it takes them a long time to do their birth certificate. I did it right away. I
mm,
decided to get that done and over with. And
mm.
that was like one of the major things I did to take care of before I went further into my transition.
So you got your legal name
Yeah,
change done, which
2013,
helped you to. Mm,
2013, I think it was July 9th, 2013 or July 8th, one of
wow.
those days. But it was 2000. Yeah.
And once the surgery, sorry, once the name change was done, um, but before you went to Kaiser, before your name change, let's say when you went to Kaiser, right?
Uh,
How were they treating you at the time? Were they still calling you by your legal name?
Nobody knew my legal name.
They were calling you by your legal name?
Nobody knew my legal name.
Okay. So when you went to Kaiser, you had
Hmm.
your name changed and everything was done.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I didn't have a legal name. I didn't have my other name unless they asked me personally, like what it used to be, which I've had people do.
Mm,
I'd tell them if I wanted to, but other than that, no documents really asked me for my old name very much at all
mm.
when I went
They,
into Kaiser.
they addressed you the right way. It's
Yeah,
kind of made it more easier because all that can again cause the gender incongruence and a lot more gender dysphoria.
yeah.
That can
They
be.
do ask you what your preferred name would be. That's what they
Mhm.
go by. They see what they have on there, but they also ask you what your preferred name would want to be. So they put it in your chart and they
Mm.
write it down and everything.
I'm glad they do that. Yeah. So one of the things, when I have gone to the doctor's office and I'm not legally changed, I always get called Daniel, and it is hard, when
Uh,
you go to the doctor's office. Um, I try to not put makeup and all that. I try to go as just as I am.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, you get misgendered, and no matter what you do, no matter whatever you tell them, and they take your pronoun,
hard.
they take your
It's
preferred
hard.
name, but they keep calling you
Yeah.
your legal name because that's what shows up in the case sheet, your chart. That's the name that first shows up. They don't look at the. And I asked them, why do you keep calling me by my name? Is there a way I can put my preferred name here? And they said, oh, we do capture that, but it's in the notes section in the fourth page. It's like,
It
okay,
should be at the
gotta change
top.
it. You got to change it. You got to change it. It's not just capturing the notes, but also using the notes, right? Following the
Yeah.
process and using it. The Just to walk me through the first surgery that you had. And you said you went through like 18 or 19 surgeries so
I'm
far,
going
right?
through number 18 this month.
You're going through the 18th surgery
18th surgery this month.
for your uh,
Bottom surgery. Well,
bottom surgery.
if you take away top surgery, then take away two of those, then be about 16 for bottom.
Even then, it's a lot,
Yeah,
Bryson.
it's a lot.
It's not. I don't think any human being can actually go through the same surgery again and again and again. It is kind of very unconstitutional, even to think about the fact that the medical industry has not really perfected a simple way of just aligning the treating the gender incongruence, especially from a medical side. And it's too appalling to me when I hear
Yeah.
that. The So what was the first time? What was I know you said you had your breast reduction
Yes,
surgery.
when I started surgery, I had the first one was top surgery and top surgery. They removed the breast completely.
Mm,
They had to do it where they did one single line all the way across my chest, and then
mm,
they removed the nipples and put them on the side, and then they pulled the skin after they took it all out. They pulled the skin and then they repositioned where they're supposed to go,
mm,
and they put it back. But the doctor told me, and she's like, "Okay, you got to lose a certain amount of weight before we can do the surgery." So I did.
mm.
I did as much as I could. In about 3 months, I lost 70 pounds so I could get it done. I was
Seven
done.
zero
Yeah. From
seven
May to
zero.
well, roughly
Oh,
from May to October, I weighed from 295 down to like almost 200.
oh my goodness!
Yeah,
So
in
much of
2017.
I didn't know, John Fraser. So much of determination you had. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was really happy. And there's a and I was really happy because I wanted to get it done. So I did everything possible to get it done.
Mm, mm, mm,
And when I got it done, she told me, okay, we're not going to use drains.
mm,
But my advice is get them.
mm.
Some of this story might be graphic, some of it might not be. I just want our viewers to understand that.
Mm,
But when they did top surgery, I was I had this vest on that looked like a bulletproof vest that zipped up and everything and it linked and it kept everything really tight. And I had foam underneath and I couldn't take it
mm,
off for a week.
mm,
So by the time the week was about to come up and I was going to see the doctors, I'm like, Mom, why is my chest all squishy?
mm,
And she's like, don't worry about it. We'll see what we get to the doctors, what's going on. Found out there was a little ball that formed inside,
mm,
and there was some fluid that they then it didn't come out because there was no way to let it out. They didn't do
mm,
drains they should have on me. So
mm,
they went in and they took a needle about this long and
mm,
it had a syringe and they took like a fat syringe like this and they just stick it in there and pull out they took like four of those and pulled out all the excess blood, and then they had to cut the sides open, and they had to go in and pop the balls that formed, and then I had to stuff the sides. By the time I was done, I had to stuff them, but I looked like a train wreck. My whole chest was black and blue, and everything in my scar, and they're like, okay, we're gonna give you stuff to put on the scar, so you can put these little scar tape things that help put them down. They're adhesive, and you put them on. Became allergic to them. Can't use them. So that didn't help very well. That's when I realized I started becoming allergic to things because lo and behold, here we go. And they didn't do all of the sides. So they didn't take away the doggy ears on the sides like they should have in
mm,
one take all the way around. So a few years later, I decided I want to go back and get that done. So I laid on the side of their table and they're like, okay, we're going to give you lidocaine and we're going to do it right here in the office, a procedure to take off a chunk of skin like this and then pull it back. Yeah, they did that and they sewed it up and they did it in their office because they have a procedure room. And they gave me 60 cc's of lidocaine and I'm like, I can still feel this. And they're like, well, if you can still feel this, we're not going to be able to do it. So I cried and I suffered through it. I got it done. But I had them take it off on one side and only do one at a time. And I wore that binder again and everything like that. I looked black and blue and I was like, they had to go in and take a little bit more of the blood out later down the line and through this same thing happened to the other side. And through this process, I've lost one of my nipples and I've lost the way they look because I don't know, over time, I just woke up one day and it was just gone. This one's just flat completely, and this one exists, and it's just
mm.
over time things change, and not everything is gonna look the way you exactly want it to. And my scar, yeah, it looks like you can't tell very well, but it turned purple because of my skin tone color.
Oh my God.
So you can see it, but you can't, and that's why I always got afraid to go swimming without a shirt on until it faded and afterwards, because there's a lot of care you have to do with your scar to keep it from in the sun and fading and just there's a lot of work to do with all this.
Mm,
And it was like, so my sister's a nurse at the hospital, so she was at her house one day and they said, okay, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? So I'm laying on my side and she's trying to that hole that they created right here. She was trying to pack it for me. But she would show me and help me how to do it, which
mm,
was really good. I appreciate that and
mm,
things like that. The little things like yeah, and that's when my first surgery my mom ever took me to, and
mm,
yeah, that's start of a long journey. But that doctor was phenomenal because anytime that I had a problem, she was right there and I could call her and they could get me in and they could take care of it. And she's one of the doctors that I was really happy to have on my journey.
mm.
And I can't say that about a lot of them, but this one for sure. She was on top of everything. She made sure everything was great. She made sure you were doing good. And they even took pictures before and after. They could see
Oh,
what they did and what the changes are, so they know if anything's wrong or happening, or just keep it in your chart and things like that.
my goodness. And so they did not take care of the procedure correctly and they didn't know that they had to drain the fluid.
She did, but she's a 50-50 chance person if she's gonna use them or not. So you don't know on yourself if you're gonna need them or not. she takes the risk of guessing, hey, I don't need them or I do need them. And I knew somebody who had half of it that they needed a drain and half of it they didn't, because it's
Mm,
just, but it just depends on the person, and she doesn't know that. She's not going to know until she starts surgery on you and you're done with the surgery if you're going to need them or not. So my suggestion is just get them, even if you don't. In the end, it saves you the trouble
mm,
and the pain and everything you have to go through. Luckily, I have no feeling because I just you lose a lot of sensation. Some people get it back, but I didn't.
mm.
So I don't have much of my feeling up here from surgery.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. It's so hard to even hear that that's supposed to be the most simplest surgery compared to the bottom
Other
surgery.
one. Yeah.
Right now, we have not even gone to the bottom surgery. I know we are, and it's such a trauma going through the top surgery itself now. What made you think that you want to go back to the same surgeon? What made you feel? What did you think
Thing
in your mind that, okay, I have this experience and I don't know whether this is the right thing, but can I trust these people and go to my bottom surgery?
the
What
thing
made you?
is the surgeon that I went to only does top surgery and plastic surgery for other people. They have a whole different department that does bottom surgery, and it's only one doctor two doctors who do bottom surgery. One's a plastic surgeon and one's a urologist. And the urologist is the one that does most of the bottom surgery. The
Mm,
plastic surgeon just is there to do what they need to do.
okay.
So that is down in LA, which is way different, a whole other ball game to talk about.
How many doctors do you think would have worked on your body so far since 22? You are 22. How many doctors do you think would have worked on your surgery and all the procedures
I think if I'm
approximately?
thinking correctly, seven, including a physician assistant,
Mhm. 7 doctors over a
but
period of.
all at different times.
Mhm. So there were 7 doctors, and probably they would have passed the case notes to different doctors as to.
But that's the thing. That's the thing.
Hmm,
Like, this is what I don't understand is my primary, and this is an example, my primary who I see all the time wants checks up on my bottom surgery and checks up on things and makes sure things are going great. But when they want to contact the surgeon who did the bottom surgery, sends them an email, actually sends them 5 emails, and they never respond. It doesn't care to talk to them.
hmm,
That's what I don't understand is why.
because he's too busy.
That's
And so
Kaiser. They don't talk.
how can they give you any treatment or any kind of next steps if they have not
Yeah,
spoken to the surgeon who actually did the surgery? And does the surgeon assume that everything is going well? Why do they not get a response? And
I
is it
know,
only,
right? And so it's just
yeah.
like it's things like that that I don't understand why you can have surgeries but you don't communicate very well.
Hmm.
That's the problem that I noticed about Kaisers. They don't communicate as well as they should with each other.
So the doctors don't have, so your medical case sheet, all your medical procedures, everything is documented in your electronic medical records. They have that information. Now, why isn't that data not being used between the doctors to diagnose correctly, saying that, Bryson, you came here last time, you had this problem, and we are going to fix it, instead of trying to reopen something or reinventing or probably using their own judgment on, this is what I'm going to do.
Uh,
Why do you see that happen between all these physicians and doctors and.
I've seen it happen before, yes.
Mm,
But they're like, you had this back then. Okay, well, why wasn't I notified that I had this back then? And I could have taken care of it by the time I came now.
mm.
It's like they just don't, when they find things, it's because of one specific doctor, and I don't like her, but I have to be nice to her because she does most of my surgeries.
Hmm. It is sad sometimes you have to work with some doctors who are probably not nice to you. Um, I think it happens a lot in our community, right? My doctor is he's very he's not responsive, and I told him about myself. And sometimes even to break the silence in the doctor's office,
Mm.
I have to talk. I have to keep talking so that I feel like I don't want to feel awkward. That awkward silence, I hate it. And when you have to work with doctors and physicians like that, it kind of creates more anxiety, right? You're like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this.
Here's a question for you.
Mhm.
Okay, when you're asking that, it brought up something. Why do doctors like, okay, for example, my doctor, she decided after a while she got tired of wanting to do surgeries with me. She just got tired of it. She got tired of seeing me all the time and the complications and just everything. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no fix for it yet. You guys haven't perfected it. That's what I'm thinking. But like, I even noticed that she started getting tired of wanting to even work. She started treating me differently than
Hmm.
before when we first started till like towards the middle. And then she's just like pretty much was done. She didn't really want to do any more surgeries. She just did it because she had to, but she didn't really want to. I had that feeling when I was with her at one of my surgeries. But I don't understand why doctors are like that.
So this doctor was not really treating you out of a human way, I mean,
Like
medical condition, and she was just
she
using, she
she
just felt
thought
like she was getting burnt out, that she didn't want to treat you anymore.
she thought my personal life was more important than the actual problem when I'd be in a doctor's office.
Can you repeat that again?
She thought, okay, so for example, like when I wake up from like anesthesia and stuff like that, I know I'd say things and I'd go about my merry way after healing and I'd have to go to a doctor's appointment for a checkup. I'd go in there and she'd be like, "Oh, did you know that you were telling me that you're going to get engaged?" And she would just go on about my life and not really just like focus on what's going down because she met another trans person that want to transition with bottom surgery and went in there, called that person a man, and then turned around and asked me if I ever dated a person who did and asked if I dated that person. And on top of that, started talking about me and how I'm going to propose and all this other stuff in my personal life when I'm there for a specific problem and then she'll take out the stitches, she'll do what she needs to do, but then not very ask questions and just kind of like shoo me out the door into the hallway and be like, you know where to find me if you need me. And then just that was the end of it.
Hmm.
It's kind of things like that that I don't think is very professional because when I went to a different doctor at a different location, who's the chief of the department that this one works at, she was more all on medical, did everything she could possibly do to see what the problem was. She was very, very like hands-on, barely asked me any personal questions, didn't ask me really anything, strictly professional. That's it. And it like opened an eye because I go to her and for 6 months I don't have any problems.
Hmm.
I go to this other one and I keep having problems.
Hmm.
That's the issue with this doctor. I keep having complications after complications with this doctor. I went to a different doctor who was on the last case, who did the last surgery I had. Not really any complications
Hmm.
when she was on it. It's this one doctor, I don't know why, but I have so
Why
many complications with her.
have you mentioned that you don't want to see the doctor, to the insurance companies or to
The,
the other doctors?
that's the problem. You have to get a denial letter. This is what I don't like about the medical field when it comes to Kaiser is because they don't give you leeway. They don't give you any leeway. They have to have a denial letter that the doctors will not work with you at Kaiser to be able to go somewhere else and use a different insurance because I have another secondary insurance, but I can't use it because Kaiser's my primary
Hmm.
and I can only use it if I'm denied from Kaiser.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the worst part of it all because
So
these
you don't
doctors
like,
will not deny
mm,
you.
so you don't like the doctor, but you have to work with her.
Well,
That's what,
because that's the only doctor Kaiser has trained to ever do bottom surgeries in Southern California.
and she is horrible.
And she's not the greatest. Like there's a YouTuber out there who talked about her, and I'm like, I had the same issues you did in the video, and he says, "Oh, well, she's doing the best she can, and she's really good, you know." I'm like, me and CJ are sitting over here like, are you kidding me? This
Mm,
doctor is crazy.
mm,
But it's things like that. But it's just sitting here, just seeing her, I know something's gonna go wrong.
mm,
That's why I want to just be done. I'm tired and I'm burned out. I've had so many surgeries with her, and she's one that's like okay, for example, like the last surgeon came through to do my last surgery to the plastic surgeons, and the doctor who I had complications with worked on the team just in case I needed something from urology side. Okay, so she came in, she said hi, any questions, walked off. 2 seconds, didn't even have me even talk to her more than a second before she was gone in the
mm,
emergency department getting ready for my surgery. The
mm.
other doctor came in, talked to me. She explained the whole surgery to me. She sat down next to me. She said, "What would you like from me? Are you okay with this?" Like, she just literally sat next to me and had a whole conversation with me. That made me feel
Wow.
so wonderful about it. And I knew with her,
Mm,
and she's like, "No, we're gonna definitely get this done, and we're gonna try to fix this thing once and for all." And she was guaranteed, and she was very like, I like her a lot. This
mm,
other one, you can't even get her more than her right mind. I
mm.
don't know what's going on with her, but she just is not as professional as she can be when she talks to people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised how physicians can have a bias when they work in
Yeah.
a community, um,
Mm,
and trying to work in the space, and they are taught, and that's the only kind of surgeons they rely on. And the insurance company, of course, Kaiser, has not trained other doctors and other surgeons to be doing this surgery, because
mm,
if you have a lot of cases and a lot of trans folks are actually coming to Kaiser because of the way that Kaiser is more open and they are more accepting and they are more educated in the medical side for the transgender community. And it looks like it's, you can't just have one doctor there. Of course, it's not one doctor who's doing this and just pushing the cases away, but connecting with the patients is where I think sometimes you got to do it with more passion and empathy.
yeah. They
If
have to go. But what I we were talking about a while back, like me and a couple friends of ours, we were saying that she needs to go to a event like those conventions or something, or those doctor conventions where they teach you like a whole bunch of stuff about just in general how to be with patients, and when it comes to this kind of stuff, you have to be more like open because I've told her all my complications and all she they don't take it in consideration because Kaiser goes by a book and they go by it happens like XYZ, and these are the only things that I know that'll happen as the most common, but I wasn't the most common. So
Hmm,
things out of nowhere can always happen. And I'm trying to teach them that it's okay to see it, that other things are going to happen. Like, look at my case, for instance. And you want to prevent most of these from happening before they happen.
hmm,
And how can you if you don't listen to your patients and actually listen to what they're saying?
yeah,
That's the first step you got to do to be able to understand what is exactly going on
hmm.
and think of a way to fix it.
Oh my God.
Not just use them as a guinea pig like they used me as a guinea pig.
Hmm. I have, I'm just appalled, and I don't have any words for folks who probably have done this and they're trained to do it, and then they don't do it right, and then they start
Yeah,
correcting the course correcting, they blame others, and they don't take, and then they say, you made a choice, and why am I part of your life and I can't do this? And if I'm going to do it, this is how I do it. and either you take it or leave it. If that's the kind of attitude we have a serious problem in the medical community.
Yeah.
I know Kaiser has to get their act together. I'm pretty sure this is not a,
It's not the
um,
first time it's ever happened because
yeah. And
there's
I have
other
a friend,
things.
yeah, I have a friend who had a facial surgery and they were always misgendered. They
Uh-huh.
didn't even allow me inside because my ID looked different in Kaiser. And I spoke about that, and it was hard for me to even visit her and say that, hey, my ID is different.
I just got to get one as yourself like that, make it, just so you have one. On a side note,
Sorry?
you should just get one on a side note. Just keep one as Celia so you can be able to show people.
No, my ID is not changed in California, right? It's still my legal name is still Danielle. I've not changed.
Okay.
But my gender identity is X. Of
Oh,
course,
okay.
you will know that I'm trans person, and
Oh
I
yeah.
legally, at least my gender has been legally approved. When I show that, they still have questions, and this is a organization that's supposed to be
The
um,
most
working.
supportive, but they're not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so. I mean, I've faced a lot of issues, and especially with Kaiser and a few other organizations actually.
Yeah.
You continue with the doctor, and then suddenly the doctor is gone because the insurance company has changed, the insurance plan has changed, and
Mhm.
you don't get that coverage because it's gone now, and they don't want to do any more facial
Like
feminization. They don't want to do HRTs. They don't want to take this particular level. They just think that they're not taking us seriously. The problem I see is that, and I know in your case, right? If you had seven surgeons working on you for almost 16 surgeries, seven surgeons
17.
working on 17 surgeries.
Yeah.
Um, you just think about what your human body can usually take, right? There's so much of abuse. Your body it's going through a lot of changes because it's trying to heal, and then that's another surgery. It's trying to heal. There's another surgery.
Don't my
Tell me
option.
about that. Tell me about that because I know you've said a lot of times, and Bryson, I get so angry when I hear that you go to the doctor and you keep having surgeries. It's just like
I know. I know it's a hard
blowing.
one. And I hope this is my last one. I hope. I'm
Yeah.
praying on everything that it goes smoothly and this is my last one and no infections at all. It's just to remove, it's not to add anything. It's just that's all it is. So it could be done. But anyway, so back to your question. What so in my thought is there's a lot to it, the medical side. But how depth do you want to know all or do you want to know deep or how your question exactly?
Now, just tell me some of the times when you had a surgery, you're hopeful that it's going to get better, and then it did not. Like right from your, like the breast reduction surgery, right? Top surgery. You thought it's going to be okay, and then you had two other surgeries just to fix that.
Yep.
Um, my thing is, in the first place, you need to know the patient's existing conditions and understand that
Oh, I get it now.
this
Okay.
is going to happen, right?
So
Mm.
So I get it. So throughout these surgeries, they put a pretty hard toll on my body. When I started having complications, things started not like functioning properly. Like my body started changing to the point where after I look back on it and how many surgeries I've had, my body took a complete downhill. Yes, I've gained weight because I've had to go through a lot of surgeries, so I haven't had a chance to work out or anything like that. So it's been very hard just sitting at home and doing nothing.
Mm.
But when it comes down to it, my body just feels weak all the time. Like I can't go back and do the things I used to do. I can't lift things the same way that I used to. I can't bend over or my whole body just feels so worn down. It's so tired that it just drags. Even though I'm awake and have energy every day, it just feels like my body is not ever going to go back to the same as it was before.
Mm.
Because before I had any of the surgeries, I was very athletic. I was very able to go out and do things. And now it hurts just to move around sometimes.
Mm.
Just to move around, it hurts really bad because I have so much done to my body. That my body, even the doctor, even the PA told me, she's like, you need to stop doing surgeries because your body's not gonna be able to handle it pretty
mm,
much. Because it hasn't. It's now I think it's at the point where if I do any more, it's not gonna be very good for it.
mm,
'Cause I'm trying to go back to what I did and I'm trying to do what I used to do and it's a struggle to get there.
mm,
It is because all the surgeries it takes a toll on it. And she said that all the infections that you have and all the antibiotics you've been on and everything you've done, now they want me to like just take like probiotics and try to take a lot of other things just to get rid of all that bad stuff in your system. So you have bodies to fight off infections instead of not having that anymore because I've been on so much antibiotics, none of them are starting to work anymore.
mm,
That's how bad it's gotten. None of them are starting to work. Came allergic to a lot of stuff through this whole surgery process.
mm.
And at the end of it, it's I just like even when I had my bottom surgery, my arm will never function again the way that it wants to. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing is not to have the right things functioning the way they're supposed to.
Mm,
'Cause I can feel my bones cracking and popping and weak and just moving around and but I still do what I need to do. I still go out and do it. No matter what, I still do it. It just hurts every day.
yeah,
Do it
I'm
though.
so sorry for, all those things that's going on. And one thing that I can say, Bryson, is your determination, like what keeps you going through all this. In spite of all this, you are determined to live your life authentically
I'm gonna
and to show the world that you would have probably regretted it if you had not attempted, right? So that's another thing to think about. Like maybe I should have done something medically.
different. I should have had done a bunch of things different if I could have throughout this process without
Mm,
looking back on it. Like I should have given myself time to heal. Even though you're healed in like 6 months or you're healed in a year, you're not really healed. Your body is not really healed.
mm,
It takes at least 2 years for your body to heal. And I didn't let that happen. And part of my transition, I didn't. And I should have.
mm.
So it was
Maybe.
like back to back all the time. And so that's why I did a lot of from 2017, well, from bottom surgery was 2018 till just July of this last year,
Mm.
2023. That's how many surgery I've had since then. It's
You wanted
60.
to get it fixed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're so anxious to get it fixed because when you go to the doctor's office and suddenly you have a surgery and you want to have a follow-up to fix it, sometimes waiting for 2 years, a lot of other things can happen during the
Yeah.
process.
No, the fix it if it's a complication and it's a little fix it and
Mhm.
it's something that they need to do right away, fine, go for it. But I mean like for the bigger parts of the surgery, like my arm surgery and my bottom surgery when I first got all my bottom completely like part of it done, like the main one from my arm and my leg was there. I should have let that all heal over the course of 2 years before deciding to put in like implants and put in and then after the implant failed after 3 weeks and taking it out waiting only a year to do it. I should have waited 2 years to do that one or if
Mm,
not more because it wasn't healed all the way and it epically failed again 3 weeks later.
mm,
So it when I did try it again when I tried again, but that's where I'm telling you a complication came in because the doctor didn't ask me. She didn't check anything. She didn't ask for any blood work. She didn't ask for anything. She just said, "Okay, why are you here?" When I had a phone call with her telling her I wanted to get it done again. I'm like, "Okay, I want to get the implant done again. It's been over a year. Can we do it?" She's like, "Okay, yeah, we'll make an appointment, come in and we'll talk about it." Okay, I come in. She's like, "Why are you even here?"
oh my God.
And then she asked me, she goes, "When do you want it done?" And I was like, "As soon as possible." She goes, "April 22nd, we can do it. This one, da da da, and got it done and put me in there, put me in surgery." But she didn't talk to me. She didn't say, "Hey, have we fully healed from the last one? How do you feel?" Nothing. She just said, "Okay, we can do it again," and send me on my way to the surgery.
Mm,
And that was that. pretty much. And she didn't really, and it was that doctor I told you that doesn't communicate very well with her patients.
So she didn't
And
listen
that's what
to
they
you at
need to
all.
learn how to do. And they
Right.
don't need a training course for that.
Mm. Oh yeah, doctors have only 2 hours of the training in LGBTQ education, and even
Uh,
that's optional. So that's the problem we have today
yeah,
is because doctors and nurses are not really trained in handling the trans patients, and even LGBTQ patients, they are not, and they don't understand the issues and the traumas and the mental health issues that we go through, just right there because they're not taking care of you. The way they treat you, they discard you, they don't value what you're saying, they don't listen to you. These are
mm-mm,
big problems in the doctor's office, and they don't see it. And they say, "Hey, I'm treating you. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing my best." Actually, you're not doing your best. You are just doing what you are just doing because you have to do it. When you really want to help the trans patients, they probably go beyond their um, everything to make sure that
yeah.
saving lives. Because I don't see with all this 8 to 7 doctors, how many years. So you said you started in 28, and for how many years you've been having this surgery? This
2018, 2017 was my first top surgery.
mm,
Then I've had bottom surgery in 2018, so they waited a year before they started bottom surgery. But they do
okay.
bottom surgery in like four sections.
Mm,
Because I didn't know about the other one. I didn't know there's two types of bottom surgery, but I only knew about one of them at the time. So that's what I told them I wanted. That's why I ended up with it. But it was okay. I like it anyways.
mm,
It was four surgeries they had to do to complete the whole. That's what they put it in. They put it in four categories. It's like categories. It's like they have to do this step one, step two, three, and then the fourth was completion
mm.
until they were able to put the implant in on number five. It's like a whole step by step thing. Oh, we're gonna start by doing just this surgery, and I don't know if you want me to explain what the bottom surgery is.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Okay.
go through the procedure in terms of the bottom surgery because a lot of times we have our own. It's always good to learn and understand. So,
So I'll tell you my story and then complication to it. You
mm,
guys understand it. When I had first bottom surgery in 2018, they they said all they were gonna do was sew up my female parts, and then they were going to put a tube, like a tube through the slit area that I have to extend it to release the skin. Because when you're on hormones, that part grows into a tiny little one because I don't know, that's what the hormones make it. And then they release the skin so then they can make that the part where they retrain where you pee out of. So they're retraining your bladder. So they have to redirect your urethra. So they put it through there. But when they do the clean out, they take like a tool or something and they scrape your whole insides out. And then they sew you up completely so you don't have a hole anymore.
mm,
And then they redirect through there and then they put you in a catheter and stuff like that
mm,
for the time being. But when I woke up from my surgery, I was like, oh, okay, everything's fine. I wake up 'cause I'm bad at waking up from surgeries. I have bad anesthesia reactions. But anyway, so my mom went to the room with me and she said she had to leave. She had to go take care of my stepdad at the time. So I stayed in the room by myself and the nurses would come in and they would talk to you and try to make sure you're okay and everything. And this is when they gave you your own room and you stay because they want you to stay overnight for like a night or two. I did mine on a Friday, so I had to stay for the weekend.
mm,
So they turned around and the nurses had left and everything's fine. And all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. So I'm calling them halfway across this intercom thing saying, I can't breathe and I'm freaking out. And I think this is when I'm fully awake and I'm freaking out. And I ended up having allergic reaction to one of the medications that they had given me. I didn't know. And I ended up with four breathing treatments that weekend and a crash cart came through the door. Like they didn't want me to die. So they brought this whole crash cart in, making sure that I was okay before they even checked me. They brought it on their way
mm.
because I just had the surgery and I didn't know what was going on. So I had a tube up my nose and around my ears the whole time I was there.
Mm.
when every time I fall asleep
Wow.
because they
Mm.
didn't want me to stop breathing. And I
Mm.
was scared because we didn't know what pill I had taken that made the allergic reaction at the time. We figured it out later, but that's when I started becoming allergic to some of the medicines they gave me.
Mm.
Because of the hormones, I became allergic to 19 different things during this whole process.
Mm.
And it's just medical stuff and medications that they gave you because the
Mm.
hormones changed my whole anatomy because beforehand I was never allergic to anything.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And did you have any pre-existing conditions, Bryson, like the like sugar, glucose, blood pressure, anything?
nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
So literally, we're looking at a almost 6 to 7 years period. You had 17 surgeries.
Mhm, correct.
Oh my God.
And that's why I tell you, you might want to space them out a little bit. And when it comes to the bottom surgery and then getting the next stage, I think they should um do it a little bit more. Like they only give a certain amount of time and they think like, oh, after a year you'll be fine. You can go start the bottom for the other process to start the second stage. I think a little more time. They judge it off of certain people. They don't judge it off everybody being different.
Mm.
See, like somebody like me who weighs a little bit more but gets it done and has a slower process of healing, they don't see that. They just say, "Oh, okay, by our book, this is what they say is going to happen. Like after a year, you could do this. After a year, you can do that." When in reality, a little bit more time might be the best suggestion to heal from everything
Don't they
properly.
recommend that when they do surgery? And they're doctors, they should know better, right? When
It
they
should.
aren't they telling you, hey, why don't you take a break and we're going to schedule a next thing after maybe like a year and a half? Um, but I mean, you didn't ask for it, right? Or you said, oh, I want it done, or
I wanted my surgeries done, and I thought I was following what the procedure said was okay. If we have to wait a year to get the second stage, then we'll wait a year. Year comes up, I'm so excited. I want to get it done. I just want to get this over with. But
mm,
I've already started the process, so I can't quit because why do I want to be half complete?
mhm,
So I told myself I can't be half complete. I got to finish this thing.
mm,
So I wanted to do it. So I thought that that was the right decision is following the doctors and being like, hey, they say after a year you can do it. Okay, we're going to be fine. But after a year, that's when more complications started. So I don't believe it was okay, but it's only my opinion because,
mm,
everybody's made differently and doctors don't see that. They see you as by a book, not by as a person.
mm,
There's some doctors who will talk to you like you're a person and be nice and everything like that, but the way they do things is actually just by the book. Because I have a doctor, my primary I was telling you about, who will find out every answer to everything that goes wrong. Like every surgery I had, she was on top of it. She knew everything. She was down to the core of everything, but she didn't do anything about it because Kaiser has it by the book. You're only allowed to do it certain things, certain ways. Didn't want to get in trouble by the book, but she knew everything.
no, the book is evolving, right? It's not that
Yeah.
the same thing. And when you work on
Yeah.
so many patients, you're always expanding your knowledge and seeing that these cases can have these effects
Mm.
and start changing and adapting based on these new changes that are coming in. And that's what the science is, right? I mean, you can have the book, but and maybe the doctors can assume that okay, what I've done for another patient might be applicable here, and obviously it is not. So when they know that this is happening, they need to start being more aware and more uh, like tuned to what could happen, what are the issues, and start thinking about it, right?
But
Yeah.
here's a question for you.
Mhm.
On the medical side of it, why does the medical insurance and the medical like Kaiser, for instance, they give you strict guidelines and they give you strict good like you have to follow directly through like even our process. They have to follow this directly and they can't go outside that or else they get in trouble for it. But there's some cases that some things happen. I get that, but why do they have to restrict it so much? Why can't they just realize that everybody's different and just have something in there that shows that, hey, this could possibly happen or that could, and what do we do now? Because they don't have a whole guideline on our book yet.
Now, I think when the doctors look at it, right, they look at diagnosis, and the diagnosis has a code to it. So when they diagnose one particular thing, then they have a procedure, and then that's what the procedure is they do for that particular diagnosis. And the insurance company pays only for that diagnosis code and what those codes are, ICD-9, ICD-10, whatever these codes are. And then they also start treating based on these codes, but at the same time, you may not fall into those codes. And then they find something that is more common or that could be relating to a particular diagnosis code, which is not the one that's addressed before.
Yeah,
They might try to do a little bit more and try to accommodate that within that diagnosis code, because the insurance company is all about that procedure is going to cost this much time, this doctor, the experience, this much money. So it's all translated into money in terms of these procedures. And the insurance always looks at, I don't want to pay more. So if I can cut this cost here, if I can cut this cost here, what do I do to cut this cost here? And that's how they look at it. They don't treat the patient based on an open flow, like, okay, this is what we're going to, and sometimes they do, but it's going to cost an arm and a leg.
yeah,
They will say that you can, because when you're doing surgery, suddenly you could have another complication, and then you bring in another doctor, and then they address that. But so when those things happen, what happens is the insurance companies may not be ready for that, because they're not, the diagnosis code of the procedures will not be open to that, like an anesthetist, right? When the person is giving anesthesia, suddenly what happens is you might react differently in the anesthesia, anesthesiologist. I don't know. Person who gives anesthesia is the one who knows what to do, how to make sure that you revive back, what are the things you can do. And also you have other folks who are working on these cases. So I think the problem the medical community has is just they're just fixated on the insurance company has, not the medical community. Medical
mm,
community doesn't have a problem at all. The providers don't have an issue. They will do what is needed to save your life. But what happens tomorrow is the insurance company will try to put a code on every little thing in the procedure the doctor's done, and they'll say, I cannot pay for this because that's out of the diagnosis. And that's why we have a problem. Um, so if they're doing some procedure, and if the procedure is related, and then the doctors have to justify, they have to write notes saying, this is the reason why we did this, it is related to this, so you have to pay. And so the doctors also have to sometimes do a lot more to justify for the patient as to why they had to do this procedure. So it is a very commercialized way of looking at it. But unfortunately, the insurance companies are starting to even tell doctors that I'm not going to cover your for this particular diagnosis. I'm not going to cover this one. You can say whatever you want, but I'm not going to cover that. So the doctors have to fight and advocate for you. And that's why the
yeah,
doctors need to be really an advocate for the community. If they don't advocate, what's going to happen is we will run into these situations. We will run into all these issues where we are going to have more issues from the trans community, and they are not going to bother because this is a small population for them to be concerned
mm,
about. They don't have empathy sometimes
mm,
because, hey, I don't know why you're doing this, because you don't have to do this. You just chose this lifestyle. That's not how doctors should look at it. Doctors need to have empathy. If you're not having empathy, you're not fit to be a doctor. You don't have to
mm,
be that business. You do something else. I think that's the problem. When that doctor that you are mentioning, if she doesn't
yeah,
have the concern at all, then what the heck is she even there? Right? Talking
mm,
about some stories and saying, why are you here? That's not how you tell a patient, right? You want to make sure the patient is feeling welcomed and welcome in the whole procedure. And it's just appalling, Bryson. I don't know. We can, do a little bit more, but one of the things that I want to just close by saying to you right now is in all this, right? In all this,
there's more to tell you later.
yeah. No, we can definitely record a little bit more. I think what I'm saying is in all this procedure that we have been doing, what kept you going when you had your 10th surgery?
Mm.
You're like,
Well, well, I do have willpower for some reason, and I knew I didn't want to be half complete. But well, this is a hard story, but
hmm,
I had a big supporter that was one of my biggest supporters through this whole thing, and Partway through my transition, uh, she took her own life to suicide,
Oh, God.
and it was my mom's sister. My aunt
Mm,
did, and she was the best thing that ever happened to me. She was like another mother to me, and
mm,
she always supported me, and I was, I was like her kid,
mm,
and I grew up with her pretty much, just seeing her every summer and all this. And when I started this, she was happy. She was happy about who I was becoming, and she was thrilled, and she was watching the whole thing because she lived out of state, but I got to visit her. And after she passed away, I told myself, you know what, I have to finish it for her. I can't just do it for myself. I got to show her that I can be who I truly was supposed to be, and I'm not going to give up on something that she doesn't get to see finish.
mm,
I have to finish something that's great for myself and for her. And I know that she's watching every single day me go through everything I am. That's why I'm still here,
mm,
because some of my surgeries could have been made way worse, but I know that she sees me become who I am, and I don't. And for some reason, I have not giving up on myself, because I believe that if I would have given up on myself, I either would have reverted backwards into not being happy and done something stupid, or I just would hate on myself the rest of my life.
mm,
And I can't sit there and hate on myself, because the more I got done, the happier I got
mm.
through the process, the happier I got
I think
with
you're
my
holding on,
life and
right?
everything around me.
You're holding on to whatever you can hold on to keep this
Yeah.
going, right? Your auntie,
Yeah.
it might be hard to even lose somebody who was very supportive,
Yeah.
and get through some of this is very hard. And I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm pretty sure that she's watching you
Yeah.
go
Every
through
day
transition.
she lets me know. I know that one, but it's just I know that she'd want me to be happy and be with somebody makes me happy, even if they when they support me through this, and be able to help others. And I think that's the gift she's giving me, is to be able to help others through their transition, because that's one of the things I want to do. I
Yeah.
know she's got that power over me when I sometimes I think about it and I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
I'm gonna do it for her. I
Yeah.
have to.
You want to do it for her, you want to do it for you want to do it for your
And
mom,
myself,
and
yeah.
all the people that who have supported you, and also the community that's looking up to, in the support group, we always are concerned about you. You
So
know that you're doing well, you're doing okay, right?
side note, side
Mm,
note, when I went up to San Francisco for my surgery, my dad went, and that's the only surgery he ever went to.
mm,
It's the only surgery out of this whole transition he ever went to.
mm.
All the rest were mom. Mom
That's
was taking care of everything. Mom was getting pretty mad that dad wasn't helping. But she my dad would buy like medical supplies and stuff like that and send it, but it was like because of the wife that he was with, he
mm,
knew of me transitioning. He accepted me as his son, but we never really talked about it. We never sat down. We can have conversations now, like years later, about it and things that went wrong, but not like at first. It was really hard. I could tell.
mm,
It's harder, probably on a father than a mother to uh,
mm.
lose their youngest kid, but they're
Yeah,
not losing; they're gaining a son, which is great.
I know no one is losing anything. They just have to understand that, there are so many folks who don't have this privilege of what you're doing. They want to live in their authentic life, and they don't have the money. They don't have. I have
Resources or
somebody.
anything, and that's why I want to give them, try to help them with the resources and do that
Right.
thing I was telling you about.
Mm. I think it's important to give your time, your story, contribute to what can change, because we need these stories to be heard. And insurance companies, even Kaiser, and all the companies that are working in this whole business, they made it a $1 million, $1 billion business, um, not caring for lives. I think when you start looking at commercializing these elements of human life, you kind of lose the value
Yeah.
as to what you put in,
Oh
and your
yeah.
body has to go through so much of turmoil to get to a point where you are trying to survive and live and say, I want to be just like any other person. Why can't I be like this other trans friend of mine, who has never had a problem? But I think your story is so unique because I didn't know that you had like 17 surgeries in a span of like 6 to 7 years.
Yeah.
I didn't know those numbers, Bryson. It's
I had
too
three while I
much.
was in San Francisco, and I was only supposed to go there for one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mm.
Two of them were fixed surgeries. Yeah.
I hope the final surgery that you're having will give you some closure in terms of all the, because
That's what I'm hoping for. But
it's not the
there's a
physical, right? It's a mental aspect also, right? Going
oh
through such
yeah,
pain.
there's a lot more to this story about bottom surgery and everything. And that's gonna take another hour to even talk about. So
Hmm.
I don't know what you want to talk about next surgery, or where do you want to go from here?
Now, I think we will pause here because we'll stop here.
Okay, that's
We
fine.
if we go, we might probably get into we might lose because we have spoken almost more than 2 hours of
Yeah, we should
conversation.
just take another day and do that again.
Yeah, just getting into the description of how things are done, like how does the medical surgery work, if you know how we can explain. You
There's
already did.
there's four components. There's four components
We'll
to
we'll keep it for the
transition.
next conversation, definitely. I don't want you to explain around because we will capture this. It'll at least give us some flow in terms of you watching it, me watching it, saying what things are working well, what is not, things we can emphasize. It'll give us some idea right now because
Okay.
we have a template, right? We have some information about your personal life story and then
Yeah.
your medical transition. One thing, Bryson, we want to be careful about is we want the world to see that people like you, in
Are
spite of all the odds, in spite
are
of all the
possible.
medical, you are still firm in what you want to do. That's the important thing we want to learn from this. It's not, I've seen people say that this is too much for the trans community, and look what Bryson is doing to himself, and he's messed up his life. This is not the message that's coming out of this.
No, no, it's gonna be a different message. Don't worry,
The
it's gonna be a good
message,
message.
yeah, the message that has to come out of this is look, people, look, world, in spite of all this, within 6 years, this person has perceived, I mean, be persevered all these medical, surgical interventions and so much going on that they
Mhm.
want to do more and they want to educate the world. They want to educate the medical community about it because we don't want another person to go through what Bryson went through, right?
Yeah,
That is the important message that we get out of this. We need
yeah.
that kind of stories. And I'm so glad that you're willing to talk about it.
Mhm.
Not many people talk about it because it's so triggering.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Mhm.
And it's so just painful to just go back to those times and the pain that you went through physically, emotionally, and then keep talking about it now, reminding yourself about it is not easy, Bryson. I'm
It's not.
so thankful that you're, having this conversation. But this is a beginning of a lot more conversations we can do. Put some
Yeah,
small bits and pieces of the conversation too. Um,
that's fine.
but we want to make sure that people are really listening to this, whether it's Kaiser or whoever, and trying to
Yeah. I
call you.
want to help. I want to help the trans community be able to understand that it's possible to be who you want to be as long as you are willing to put in what's gonna come, what may or may not happen through the journey of it.
Yeah,
Because whatever happens through the journey, it goes the way that it goes for you is different for somebody else, and it's not the same for everybody. And mine happened to be way different than my best friends who barely had anything, and he still went through it, but he was there for me to help me through mine. Like it was just it's different for everybody, and you can't justify because you're not going to know till you go through it what's going to happen.
Mm, absolutely. But I really want to thank you so much, Bryson, for even spending so much time